25 drivers, 16 nationalities, 3 champions, 1 champion. Road to Indy TV.
So ladies and gentlemen, we are set to go, just counting down the seconds before we fire up these drivers and get them underway. 18 pilots, the very start of this Road to Indy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get rolling here. On behalf of Cooper Tires and Allied Building Products, drivers, start your engines! I gotta go.
Rob Howden will make his way up and rejoin me here in our announce booth. Hunter McElrea, Braden Eves up on the front row, along with the rest of the USF 2000 cars, allowing those engines to warm up just a little bit, let them come up to temperature. Pace vehicle has been dispatched. We'll see them roll off shortly and make their way out onto the grid and warm up those tires and get those USF 2000 machines ready for action here this afternoon. Hunter McElrea on the pole position. You see him rolling off along with the rest of the competitors. Braden Eves. It is a tight championship battle between those two. And Darren Keene is not out of the hunt either, running in third place. But it is a 9-point gap right now that Braden Eves holds over Hunter McElrea, who will also start on the pole for tomorrow's race in the USF 2000 series here and the part of the Grand Prix of Portland at Portland International Raceway. Looks like we've got one car that is still sitting on the grid. The team runs out right now. That's Ayrton Ori. Does get moving as well. There we are. Now everyone is rolling out onto the grid. They'll make their way around. You'll notice a little weaving back and forth, getting those tires up to temperature, getting all the fluids up to temperature. Pace car out in front of the field right now as they get set to go racing for 25 laps or 40 minutes. And that is a lot of time for these drivers out on course. Rob Howden, who has rejoined me now, there will be a lot of action as we have seen throughout this day today.
You know, the one thing I'm always worried about is that opening corner, right? You just know that this is going to be exciting coming through what we're now calling the Shelton Curve, formerly the Festival Curve, but the Shelton Curve will be a key part of this racetrack. And the very opening lap, the opening corner, I don't care which race we're talking about, that is really where everything settles in. And we're hoping that these drivers are able to get through. It's such an enticing corner because you're so wide coming in. You can really take a bunch of different lines coming in, but it funnels down so much. And especially with the runoff there, if you do make a mistake, you can go through the runoff, but you're going to lose lots of time.
And you don't want to lose those positions, especially in the opening part of the race, because it is so difficult to make up the track position as well. PIR is a very difficult place to pass. There are only a couple of opportunities, and if you put yourself back in the race early in the going, that makes your job that much more difficult.
Primary championship challenges on the front row. Hunter McElrea, P2 in the title. He'll start P1. He'll lead the field down. Braden Eves on the outside. Jack Crawford and Colin Kaminsky on row number 2. Field set, folks. We're going racing here with USF 2000. Great pace being laid down by McElrea. Waiting for the flag to go. I like the way the start is. We're underway. Green, green, green. To the bottom goes McElrea. He'll try to hold that position down to the inside. Good shot here. They're going to come through. Who gets through cleanly? Good for the first 5 or 6 cars. Couple drivers up and over top of the curb. One of them being the 36 of Nolan Siegel. You can't go to the inside and over top of the curb. It's just too heavy, too high on that one side. So the AMR safety crew roll. I'm not sure if we have one car in trouble, but otherwise everyone getting away cleanly. Nolan Siegel in that 36 got pushed off to the racetrack and instead tried to come over top of the curbing. That simply does not work. Out front, McElrea goes to the early lead. Second spot is your point leader, Braden Eves. Third, I believe, is Kaminsky in the 23. I'll have to figure out whether it's the 8 of Eves into second or it could be Crawford in the number 4 as well. Those cars, very similar liveries. We'll see what they look like as they come by. Hard to try to pick up a number there. I think that maybe Eves into second, Crawford potentially back into the 4th spot. Crawford getting pressured aggressively from behind as well. That could be Rasmussen. Driver off. We have a driver spinning. Coming through turn number 10, 11, and 12. A driver spinning into the grass, able to continue. Another driver falling off the track as well. I think that might have been Siegel going off back there. So a little bit of chaos early, further back in the field. battle definitely for 4th and 5th. That's Crawford and Kaminsky battling it out. Yuven Sundaramurthy, I think, in the number 21, the driver potentially going off track, but coming back on. Nolan Siegel, after the trip to the inside of turn number 1 and 2 up over the curb, may have damaged the car. We'll see if he's able to get back around. He went off over in turn number 9 and 10. Siegel just getting that car refired. He'll come back across the grass now. Indeed, Nolan Siegel coming back out onto the racetrack. Hopefully he'll get things set in. It'll be a good practice session here for Nolan, unless we go full course yellow. Otherwise, the opening couple laps, decent thus far. McElrea, Eves, Rasmussen, Crawford, and Kaminsky, your top 5. Suleiman goes into 6th. Darren Keene 7th. Zach Holden up to 8th. Eduardo Barrichello 9th. And Reese Gold going into the top 10. There is the initial lineup, Todd, as they got things underway.
McElrea and Eves maintaining their 1-2 spots from the start of this race, but a nice game from Christian Rasmussen to jump up from 5th at the start, making his way through the Shelton chicane and the first couple of corners and surviving. That was what you needed to do. Get through clean and then now be able to look at the leaders and see if you can run them down.
The thing about that corner is if you're on the inside and you're able to get around the corner and stay maybe more to driver's right before you get to turn number 2, a lot of the chaos will happen on the inside of the track. Drivers trying to get in there tight, and Rasmussen kind of ran the outside. When you do that, you may lose a little bit of ground, but you're going to be the first driver over to turn number 3 and then to 4. Key opportunity for Rasmussen, and again, he took full advantage of it. He goes into the 3rd spot. One driver dropping a wheel further back. We'll try to pick up the number on that car. I think is Reese Gold in the number 10 dropping a wheel, battling it out now with Barrichello and Tomaselli. That turn 6, a bit of an off-camber corner, 6 and 7. That kind of catches them out a little bit. Here they come down the back straight. There's your leader, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. 4th, that's Kaminsky. 5th is Crawford. 6th, Suleiman. 7th is Darren Keene. Drivers coming through turns 10 and 11 and 12. They'll roll back out here, get all that speed spooled up for the run down the straightaway here at Portland. Opening race of USF 2000. Of course, our first Indy Lights race going in the books earlier today. 3 for 3 so far this weekend for Rinus VeeKay. 2 poles and a race win. Let's see who's able to get the job done here. He won from pole, and Hunter McElrea looking to follow suit. He has a pretty nice little lead of about 7/10 of a second over Braden Eves in the championship. And if we look at the points as they run, McElrea would take over the point lead by 1 marker. That's how close it is here. Hunter McElrea would be 1 point ahead of Braden Eves. You go back to Colin Kaminsky. Actually, you'll go back to Darren Keene with 2:14, and then Colin Kaminsky with 2:07 behind Rasmussen with 2:12. We'll end up having 3 drivers, 3rd, 4th, and 5th within 5 points.
That's the kind of championship that you wanted. Now we're getting to the point of the race. We've completed 3 laps. Field's starting to string out just a little bit, and there's when the drivers, these young drivers, are starting to learn that racecraft is an important part. It's about being consistent. It's about understanding the driver is in front of you and also running smoother through the corners and picking up a little extra speed to run down that driver ahead of you.
One of the great experience parts about the race, of course, the car's never really good over the first 5 laps. The setup, the tire pressures aren't set to make the car easy to drive over the first 5 to 10 laps. You want that car to come in, especially over a 25-lap race. Let's have that thing coming in around lap 12, 13, and 14. It's now when the drivers have to be able to hold onto the car and really kind of get up and grip it and move it forward based using their feet as opposed to using the setup. So all that input, whether it's steering wheel input, throttle, or brake input, that's what the drivers have in their hands and their feet to be good early. The car's definitely going to come to them, but you got to be fast here when it's not quite so perfect. Watching some of these lap times get laid down. Most drivers mid to high 112s. That's what they'll be looking for. Tomaselli just laid a 112.9 down. She's 10th. She's trying to close up here a little bit on Eduardo Barrichello. So Bruna Tomaselli, the number 24 for Pabst Racing, working forward here. Bruna qualified 11th, kind of held station, got a spot early. Everyone back underway. Outside the top 10, Reese Gold runs 11th. Josh Green in the number 5 in 12th. Kyle Dupel 13th. Christian Bogle 14th. Ayrton Orion 15th spot. Jack William Miller 16th. Sundaramurthy 17th. And Siegel, after the issues early, in 18th position.
Hunter McElroy doing exactly what he needs to do, starting to stretch out that lead just a little bit through the first 5 laps on Braden Eves. Not quite a second yet, about 0.8 of a second. And there's also a little bit of a gap to Christian Rasmussen, who is running third. But he's close to Braden Eves as well. Those 3 cars, they're still running not exactly nose to tail, but well within striking distance as the handling of the cars begins to improve as the race moves along.
Most definitely, Todd. Looking at the times, a 1:12.3 for McElroy. He's about 0.2 quicker than Eves. Eves about 0.2 quicker than Rasmussen. Rasmussen, Kaminsky, and Crawford all pretty much the same lap times. They all did 1:12.7s last time by, and that's third, fourth, and fifth. But Rasmussen has that big gap. 2.5 seconds back to the battle between Kaminsky and Crawford. Sudelman just a half a second back. Darren Keene right there as well in the number 2 for Cape Motorsports. Again, trying to find some of the quicker times further down. Who's dropping into the 112s? Josh Green, rookie driver, coming out of the F1600 program. Green in the number 5 turns a 112.9 quicker than the drivers in front of him. 112.8 for Barrichello as well. So Eduardo Barrichello in the D-Force Racing entry, the number 91, putting a good run in here early. Consistent lap times, though, for Hunter McElroy. He's pulled a full second now on Braden Eves. And you'll see the top times start to change, or the points start to change, because you get a bonus point in this category for fast lap of the race. We don't offer that in Indy Lights because these cars don't have the push to pass. They don't have the fast lap of the race in Indy Lights because you don't want the race winner who never gets a chance to use that offensive push to pass. That's obviously an advantage for people behind him getting that bonus point. So they scrap that bonus point, but it is up for grabs here. And as it goes back and forth between Hunter McElroy, it's either going to be a 1 point or a 3-point lead. McElroy now with fast lap of the race, the point lead that he will take, should they finish as they run now, would be 3 points.
All the cars in the Road to Indy ladder system look very similar. These, though, the least sophisticated of the cars, the USF 2000, the Pro 2000, then, of course, the Indy Lights a little more sophisticated, but all with front and rear wings. These ones just don't have the same aerodynamic downforce and all of the other options on the cars, as you mentioned, with the push to pass in the Indy Lights series. But this is about driver development and learning to drive that car, and you're improving your racecraft, and that's the first technique you need to master.
If you're coming out of the F1600 Championship Series or one of those, open wheel wingless cars, it's your first opportunity to run, number one, the horsepower amount, 180 horsepower. You've also got bigger brakes, a little more downforce with the aerodynamics, the front and rear wing. It's the same chassis, the same tub that we use for USF 2000 is what we use in the PM18 in the Indy Pro 2000 category, except for we put way more downforce on the car. We give it another 100 horsepower, bigger brakes, bigger tires, more of pretty much everything, as I said. But as you mentioned, it's a driver development program. These kids are coming out of karting. They're coming out of F4. They're coming out of F1600. Perfect car for them to work with now. A very high-quality car. Tatis builds a really beautiful machine, and it gives them the opportunity to run at this speed. Now, they're going to go 4 or 5 seconds faster in Indy Pro, but this is the perfect level. And Oliver Askew mentioned this to us in one of the interviews that we did, that he believed that because he's been at all the levels, he believes that the levels he's run, remember, he tested here, Oliver Askew did, for Chip Ganassi Racing in the IndyCar. Every level, he said, is just that perfect amount of more moving their way up. And he was, and again, he's the guy that would be the one to say that because he's driven all the cars. When you've talked to a guy like Spencer Piggott, he drove the older USF 2000 car, the older Pro Formula Mazda. Oliver's input so exact on exactly from his own personal standpoint what he's able to get done.
Holding station up at the front of the field, Hunter McElroy, Braden Eves running 1 and 2. Christian Rasmussen rounds out the top 3. Kaminsky and Crawford finish out the top 5. And the gap still within striking distance. In fact, Brandon Eves has shortened it up just a little bit. It was nearly a full second behind Hunter McElroy, and now it's just about 3/4 of a second. Again, we're 8 laps in, and the car will start to feel a little bit better to these drivers now as we reach the midway point of the race.
As they run on the racetrack right now, it'll be Darren Keene third in points with 214. Christian Rasmussen fourth with 212, and Colin Kaminsky in fifth with 207 points. Looking at Braden Eves trying to reel that leader back in. Last time by, they were very similar lap times, a 1:12.4, a 1:12.5. Actually, the top 3, Rasmussen's been the quickest driver over the last couple of laps. This time, McElroy does it again. He lays down at 1:12.023. See if we're going to get into the 111s here pretty soon. McElroy showing some pretty good pace here. Driver from New Zealand trying to win yet another race. Took him all the way to Road America before he was able to get his first win of the season. And I think it weighed on him a little bit mentally. He told us he's just not used to waiting that long. He's used to winning races, and a little bit of an issue for him. Tough for him not to have the pace he was hoping for early, and he did have the pace, but not able to get the results he wanted coming out of the gates. But once he won at Road America, kind of the floodgates opened. He won at Mid-Ohio as well, and looks to try to do the same thing here at Portland.
Amazing how much more relaxed you'll feel once you get that burden off your back and understand, okay, I understand what I'm doing. I do have the capabilities to win. This is part of what the drivers are learning now as well. You mentioned that the times are within a couple of tenths of one another. It's about running consistently. It's not having one lap at a minute 12 and then another at a minute 15 or 16. It's about running that consistent speed throughout the 25-lap race.
And they learn that when they're karting as well. That's one of the things that drivers will do, of course. In karting, even though it's a more rudimentary machine, it's just the chassis, the tires, and the engine itself. We don't have any aerodynamics. There's bodywork, but there's no real aerodynamics. We do have the onboard computer, and the drivers are able to see. They're able to go over all their throttle traces, brake traces, but primarily, number one, for consistency, they're able to see all their lap times, and the key is to just bang out those consistent lap times, and you do that by hitting your marks every lap after lap, just getting the job done every time. Good battle further back for the 15th position. Christian Bogle and Ayrton Orey are scrapping it out nicely there. Bogle was able to get back by. Orey had made the move earlier, but Bogle now running 15th. Ayrton Orey in 16th. Yuven Sundaramurthy, who had that off over in turn number 12. He and Nolan Siegel continue to run. 10 laps down, 15 laps still to go here in USF 2000. Just 3 more races still to go after this, and this championship is most definitely up for grabs. This one's going to go down to the final race, I believe, at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca on that September 20 to 22 weekend. We're not done at all. Love this scrap, though, as well. A little further back, as you see them coming down the front straightaway here, we got a good group of drivers. That is going to be 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, I believe. No, make that, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Crawford, Kaminsky, Suleiman, and Keene running nose to tail. Not that far back to Zach Holden, who's closing up on them. He's been quicker than both of them. Crawford and Kaminsky going at it for the position. Crawford goes back to P4 on that last lap. You can see him leading. And then, look, there's 3 drivers just wringing their hands trying to get in there. Zach Holden, Eduardo Barrichello, and Bruno Tomaselli all love the fact that they're battling it out for 4th. They want more side-by-side action, please. When you start battling like that, the lap times, of course, fall. You lose the pace, and you can see how they're closing up in a big way. Zach Holden in the number 14 in the 8th position. 2 tenths quicker than Darren Keene last time by. We may have ourselves a 6-driver battle, 4th all the way back to 10th. Tomaselli trying to spool things up as well. There's that gap coming through. Just watch how they flick those cars through. These Tatis USF 17ths, very, very nimble. And as they come through, every driver will tell me it's just a quick flick and then back at it. And then once you come, so it's a flick through 9, a flick through 10. As you come through 10, the car takes that set. You want it to get down on the shock, take that set so the shocks will compress. Then you can start getting back on the brakes because you have to have the car set where you need before you get the brakes to go to 11, then back on the throttle through 11 and 12.
Just watching that group of cars come through corner number 1 as well, some becoming a little more aggressive than others, starting to ride the curbing just a little bit more, trying to make up that little bit of ground, get a little closer, and perhaps getting a sniff a lap or 2 from now and an opportunity to move forward in a position.
It looked to me like Kaminsky may have just missed the apex a little bit. He was a little wide coming into the corner. It means he's got to drop some more speed to get around turn number 2. That's why Suleiman has closed back up on his gearbox as well. Manuel Suleiman in the D-Force racing machine. Darren Keene in the number 2, the Cape Motorsports entry, fully ready to take advantage of that. He's been able to build his gap. Here's a side-by-side battle further back. That's Holden and Barrichello. Side-by-side down the back straightaway. Holden's going to hold them off as they come in to turn 9 and 10. Man, Eduardo Barrichello, I've done that before this year already. Eduardo Barrichello, this is the best I've seen him run all year. He started the season with a different team, has moved to D-Force Racing, and he's really starting to settle in there now, getting real racy, trying to find a way by Holden.
And that's what you expect to see in this series. The USF 2000 is the driver improvement throughout, and we're witnessing it as the challenges continue.
Barrichello to the inside, book it. He takes the spot away. Barrichello to the inside of 1. Move him to P8 as he's able to get to the inside of Zach Holden. That's opening the door, of course, for Tomaselli, because with the inside move there, Holden had to get off the throttle a little bit. Tomaselli able to take the corner as usual. She closes right up now on the gearbox of Zach Holden. Tremendous racing outside this top three.
That's what we've talked a little bit about this weekend, is this track being a rhythm track. And now if you're passing the midway point of this race, you should be in a rhythm. But when you lose a position or you're battling for position, it's easy to get out of that rhythm, and you need to find it back as quickly as you can.
Indeed, great point. Because when you find yourself, when you're scrapping, you're not running the race line. You're more in the middle of a boxing match where you're just kind of battling back and forth. You're reacting to what the other driver's doing, and you get yourself out of that rhythm. You start missing apexes. You're on the throttle too early. You're thinking more about the overtake or the defense than you are actually running a good lap. Leaders working their way across the line again. 2 seconds now the lead for Hunter McElroy. Here comes that battle, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. 8th, 9th, and 10th, not that far back. 11th and 12th coming up as well. That's Reese Gold and Josh Green. Kudos to Josh Green for Jay Howard Motors Driver Development. His first race, and really impressing here in that number 5. Josh Green, trying the experience he's gained this year, and then we'll have the offseason to kind of let that all kind of percolate a little bit, let it sit on it a bit, do some more testing, and then come back to St. Petersburg for the street race in March. A brand new driver. And that's interesting, Todd, as we're kind of in the midway here, 11 laps to go. A lot of the drivers come midway through the season, and I try to sit down with them a little bit, and they talk about, I ask them about the expectations they first had, and they may be coming out of karting, whatever it may be, and they expect that they want to run in the top 5. And I'll say to them for this year, I would say, do you think that the 2020 Reese Gold would be able to beat the 2019 Reese Gold? And of course they say, yeah, me next year would beat me now easily. Well, so that's what you're doing. You're already battling against the guy who's got a full year. You're battling against the guy who's the 2019 version of who he was in 2018. That little kind of light goes off. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. They have a full year of experience. And it's only a year of experience. But when you get them to personalize that, it's like, wow, I'm going to be a totally different driver when I come back to St. Pete next March.
It's just a reminder of what the series purpose is, which is driver development, driver improvement. Through each weekend, throughout the season, you can notice the improvements. And Eduardo Barrichello, as we were watching earlier, is a perfect example of that. His growth and maturity has been evident this season.
I asked Yuvan Sundaramurthy. We did a Cooper Tire Q&A today with all the Pabst racing drivers. And I asked him, how much do you think you have grown? And how much different are you when you ran at St. Petersburg? And he looked at me and said, at St. Petersburg, I was terrified. And it was a street course. He'd never run one before. He did one USF 2000 race before. He had a number of races in an F1600, but he was terrified. And Yuvan's put in some great races already this year, and his growth has been amazing. I think Hunter McElroy's kind of been a bit of a mentor for him. Hunter's 20 years old, Yuvan just 16, and that whole team at Pabst is a very tight unit, all 4 of those drivers. But Yuvan said, he goes, when I go back next year, I'm super excited because I think I'm going to be really strong next year.
That's understandable. We have been green since the start of this race. 9 laps remaining now, 16 laps down. It has been just the one leader of Hunter McElroy who started on the pole. Braden Eves, who he is trying to catch in the championship, is running in second. Christian Rasmussen with a nice jump at the start of this race to move up from 5th to 3rd. Crawford and Kaminsky round out the top 5.
A really good battle on the racetrack right now between number 12, Manuel Suleiman, and the number 2 of Darren Keene. Darren has been doing everything he can to try to get by, and he just hasn't been able to pull the trigger yet. And that's actually allowing Eduardo Barrichello to close up. So the 2 D-Force drivers kind of sandwiching Darren Keene now. Keene, I think, is quicker than Suleiman, but he just can't quite find a way by. Let's see if he's able to finally pull the trigger when they work their way down into turn number 1 again. The thing about this racetrack is if you run that defensive line into 1, it's hard. It's not like you don't get that risk reward. You don't get penalized on the exit because that's turn 2 is such a slow corner. It penalizes both of the drivers and allows the guys behind to get closer. Let's have a look as they come down the straightaway here again. Not sure if Keene's quite close enough. There's drivers further back. Tomaselli, Holden, Gold. Indeed, Darren Keene within a couple of car lengths, but Suleiman, he's 4/10 off of that of Crawford and Kaminsky. They're stretching away. Keene last time by, not this one, was 4/10 faster than Suleiman. So Keene definitely getting held up. But this track is extremely hard to pass on. You have to be able to get through the 9, 10, 11, 12 complex if you want to get the pass done in 1. And as I said, then you run the defensive line and the driver's going to have trouble getting by you.
starting to see a couple of puffs of smoke as drivers will lock up a wheel coming through a corner around the track. You mentioned that at the start of the race, the car is not in the optimal driving position because tire pressures aren't up and the handling is a little bit different. You get that way through the midpoint of the race. The car continues to evolve as you burn off fuel and the weight balance changes. We'll again get to a point near the end of this race where the handling may not be exactly perfect for these drivers.
And again, that's what I like. I want the tires to go off a little bit at the end so these drivers have to learn. Here's that battle here as they work their way onto the front straightaway. That's Crawford and Kaminsky. I think Colin Kaminsky's been able to get by Jack Crawford, move Kaminsky to P4. And Keen's going to go to the outside as well for Sullivan. They'll work their way down to the 1. Keen to the outside. Can't quite get it done. Crisscrossing at a 2. Darren Keen putting the pressure on Sullivan. But Manuel running that slow defensive line down the inside. It's going to allow Barrichello to keep closing up. You can actually see Sullivan and Keen were a bit closer to Kaminsky and Crawford last time by because when Kaminsky made the pass, balked him up a little bit, that's allowed Sullivan to close back up on Crawford. Really good fight. 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. 8th place is Barrichello. Then we have that fight for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. That's Tomaselli in the black 24 for Pabst Racing. Zach Holden in the 14 for Legacy Autosport. The number 3 for Reese Gold from Cape. And Josh Green in the J. Howard Driver Development number 5. Kyle Dupel's worked his way up into the 13th spot. He's in the middle of a fight here with Jack William Miller. Couple of battles going on. Crawford and Kaminsky, Keen and Sullivan. Holden not able to get back around to get to Tomaselli yet either. But Josh Green definitely lining up Reese Gold coming down the straightaway here. Keen's going to see if he can't get around again. There's Darren Keen right there with Sullivan. I think Josh Green thinking about making a move by Reese Gold in the D to the inside. Book it. He's through. Josh Green now up into 11th. An impressive debut for the young driver out of Mount Kisco, New York. Green in the number 5.
That's a good example of the pass you talked about, going through the back part of the course through 7, 8, 9, 10, and making sure that you are in position to complete that pass at corner number 1 and then get back in line so that you can resume the optimal racing line and keep that competitor behind you.
Good pass for Josh Green. Pretty much textbook going into the Shelton curve, or Shelton chicane, rather. McElrea and Eves first and second, but the gap now 4 seconds for Hunter McElrea as he looks to grab another victory here, coming off a win at Mid-Ohio. He will take a point lead as they run on the racetrack. McElrea will take that lead by 3 points over Eves unless Eves is able to drop a fast time down here. Here comes Darren Keen. This could get interesting because Sullivan's starting to close up as well on Jack Crawford. Keen right up on the gearbox. Let's see if he makes a move to the inside this time at a 1. He does. Down to the inside, little side-by-side action. Book it. Great pass for Darren Keen. Showed a lot of patience there. The defensive line from Sullivan did not allow it to happen, but finally able to get a good run. Dove to the inside. And you know what? I'm going to give some props to Sullivan as well. He had lost the position and probably could have tried to force the issue diving to the apex of turn number 2, and that would have just taken both cars out.
Exactly what I was just going to mention is that you have to understand when a driver does come up the inside you and have the line, if you turn in, you may prevent him from continuing and taking the position, but you may also take both of you out of the race.
A line I like to use is if you own the apex, you own the exit. So a driver on the inside, if they've got the apex on you, they can essentially go deeper into the corner. They don't need to turn. It's up to them when they want to make that corner. 5 laps to go here for Hunter McElrea, leading the way over Braden Eves. Christian Rasmussen continues to close on Eves as well, only a half a second back. We may see a battle here between Rasmussen and Eves, and that would be tough for Braden in terms of the championship. He's trying to hold on. They're only a couple car lengths apart. They've got a big gap back to Kaminsky of almost 10 seconds. Jack Crawford going to watch out for his teammate Darren Keen. That's for the final position in the top 5. Keen's got a good car. Finally able to get by Sullivan. And we'll see if we get a battle there between those two Cape Motorsports drivers for 5th. Barrichello, we'll see if he's able to close up. I think he'll probably start putting some pressure on his D-Force teammate as well. Eduardo in the number 91 was able to close up. That's 2nd and 3rd coming by you. Again, we'll say hello to those of you who have tuned into the Road to Indy TV app on your mobile device, potentially watching online, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or RoadToIndy.tv. We welcome you to the coverage here from Portland International Raceway, the second of 6 races here in the Road to Indy. We'll have the drivers in Indy Pro 2000 to cap off the day. They'll be up next. Championships most definitely tight in these two categories. Not so in Indy Lights, as even with Rinus VK's win today, Oliver Askew in such a good position to win that Indy Lights championship. Oh, Christian Rasmussen.
He is getting closer. Yeah. He's not quite in the position to make the pass on this lap, but you can see he has improved his position, and he has gotten a little closer now. 0.4 of a second is the gap. Sawed off 1/10 on that lap. With 3 laps remaining, there should still be another opportunity for Rasmussen to gain that second spot on the podium.
And I think the key is that Christian's not out of the championship yet. It's a long shot, but he's not out of the championship. As they run on the racetrack right now, he's 64 points back, so he's trying to get as much as he possibly can. As we have drivers contact. One driver off the track. Not sure if it was contact or not, but that's one of the Legacy Autosport cars. I think it might have been Ayrton Ori who went off. Not sure if it was Holden, but it was definitely one of the Legacy Autosport cars. As they come back around, we'll be able to update you for you. You can see the drivers flicking their way through 9, 10, and 11. Oh, what a great battle right now. That is second place running Braden Eves, and third place Christian Rasmussen. One driver heading down into pit lane now. That's Ayrton Ori. So indeed it was Ori in the number 77 with the issue for Legacy Autosport.
Rasmussen takes another 1/10 of a second out of Braden Eves in that second place, and he's getting closer as they make their way through the Shelton chicane as well. So there will be a battle for that second spot before this lap is over.
This is one of the times you can probably stop talking about actual time. It's just more, they're a car length apart because they're that close. We normally follow the splits and tell you if they're getting closer and closer. Not a good run there through turn number 6, though. Through 7 now. Rasmussen had a bit of trouble through 6. A little entry over, or understeer rather. The car pushed wide on him. And that's going to give a little bit of breathing room with 2 to go for Braden Eves, who's desperately trying to hold on to second. He's lost his championship lead. He had such a great start to the season, winning 5 races, but just has not had that kind of winning pedigree here for after the second half of the season. And he's having to hold off a determined Rasmussen now. Hunter McElroy rolls onto the front straightaway. Believe we'll see the white flag this time by. Indeed, the white flag flying at start-finish. McElroy for Pabst Racing trying to take over the point lead. Clean through the Shelton chicane. Eves able to defend as well. Final time through at speed. Darren Keen's been able to stretch away from his teammate Jack Crawford. In fact, Keen 0.3 quicker than Colin Kaminsky. I think if Keen had a couple more laps, he may be able to go after Kaminsky. He was actually fastest of the 3 drivers in front of him. Eves, Rasmussen, and Kaminsky. Keen quicker. Final time through this 6, 7, 8 complex, though, for Hunter McElroy in the number 22. We had talked about this earlier, Todd. He told me when I asked him about how the car felt that it was just fun to drive. And I said 9 out of 10 times when a driver's saying the car is fun to drive, he's going to drive it into the podium. And that's what's happening right now. Hunter McElroy will work through the final couple corners of the racetrack, clean and green through 9 and 10. Out of 11, he'll roll back into the throttle here in his USF 2000 car. It has been a strong second half of the season. He will take over the point lead, the winner in round number 1 here in Portland. Hunter McElroy for Pabst Racing. Big victory from pole position. Max points, and he will take a 3-point lead into Sunday's races. Braden Eves able to hold back Christian Rasmussen, so he limits the damage there. But Eves, who led for the entire first 7 or 6 weekends of the series, loses the lead in the opening round here at Portland. 279 points for Hunter McElroy, 276 points for Braden Eves. Christian Rasmussen now actually into the 4th spot in points. Darren Keen comes home in 5th. He was 0.7 of a second quicker than Colin Kaminsky on that last lap. Keen needed 2 more laps, and we were going to see a battle for P4. But here's your top 10. Hunter McElroy, P1. Braden Eves in 2nd. Christian Rasmussen 3rd. Colin Kaminsky in 4th. Darren Keen, an impressive run, getting by both Suleiman and Crawford in the final 5 laps. He ends up P5. Jack Crawford, the young 14-year-old from Texas, 6th spot. Manuel Suleiman in 7th. Eduardo Barrichello in 8th, Bruno Tomaselli in 9th, and Zach Holden rounding out the top 10.
Basically, it was a perfect race. You know, a massive credit to everyone in my team they've literally given me the most amazing car this weekend. So it makes my life a hell of a lot easier. And, you know, we led from start to finish, fastest lap, just extended the gap as it went along. And yeah, I'm ecstatic. You know, we've led every session so far this weekend. So one race to go tomorrow. Definitely the plan to sweep the weekend, which we haven't done yet. But yeah, just keep my head down, keep working towards Laguna, and just keep doing what we're doing. So I'm really, really happy, and just keep this rolling.